Hey everyone, it's Vlad Blagojevic here and welcome back to the Fullfunnel B2B Marketing Show. And today's guest is Rob Yoegel, the Senior Director of Marketing at Linode. And he's an award-winning marketer who helped take Linode from basically being self-serving and not having any marketing to building a marketing team of 20 plus people and driving close to 75% revenue. Rob, welcome.
Hi, Vladimir. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So can you just start by walking us through the main milestones of like going from 0 to 20-person marketing team, and how did you what were the main milestones there?
Sure, no problem. Lenode is an 18-year-old cloud computing company, and the company was founded by Chris Aker, who's a developer himself, and he built the company for developers. So the history of the company from a marketing perspective is it's not that grand. We did a lot of word of mouth advertising and a lot of events, and it was all done by a very small marketing team who did a great job. As the cloud industry has grown and the major cloud players in the industry continued to grow, they were growing at a much more rapid pace, than we were. And Chris decided to invest heavily about 3 years ago in marketing. He hired Blair Lyon, who is our VP of marketing, who has really brought together this 20-person marketing team that is rooted in technical documentation, which is a really interesting story in itself, that our marketing team has technical documentation as part of it. And I think one of the biggest reasons why that happened is developers, who are our target audience, they have a built-in skepticism. I actually heard something today, allergies, an allergy towards marketing. So it's really important for us as an organization and as a marketing team to build trust and to be where our customers are and where our prospects are when they need us, and to get through that that BS detector that devs natively have around marketing.
Absolutely. I totally recognize that. Probably the most difficult audience to market to. And I think going from 0 to 75% of the revenue being driven by marketing is absolutely amazing in, let's say, almost not even three short years. So can you maybe share the process that you used to create the go-to-market strategy and what made it so successful?
Yeah, I mean, really at first comes down to attribution. It wasn't there, so we had to build out the attribution models for the internal team, the marketing team, and for the company as a whole to really understand where our new customers were coming from. It just wasn't there. So we had a lot of help. We had a lot of help not only inside of marketing, but with our business intelligence, data analytics team, our finance team, and other resources who allowed us to get to the point where now we can attribute, like you said, three out of every 4 of our new customers every month, are influenced or come directly from a marketing channel, and we're super excited about that.
Awesome. And in terms of building the go-to-market strategy, what would you say, what was the things that you decided to focus first, and in terms of channels, tactics, strategies?
Yeah, again, going back to the technical documentation team, I mean, I think as a content marketer and as a content person, I was intrigued when I came to Linode 2 years ago about having a technical writing team as part of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to do everything, everything that we produce out of marketing, we try to root that into technical documentation. That could be everything from, our events to our YouTube channel, to the content resources that we have, and then beyond the technical documentation, technical writing team, then we have all the traditional marketing roles, from product, events and creative, to demand gen, content, performance. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but nobody has digital in front of their title. And a lot of what we do, like I said, is rooted in these technical documentation, the technical documents that we write. And I just want to make sure that, as a marketing leader, we're not, and I know we're going to talk about this, I think next, I want to make sure that we're breaking down, silos across our marketing team and across the organization. And, titles are somewhat used loosely on the marketing team. Like, the folks who report into me, I tell them, call yourselves whatever you want to be, because, you're not just going to do, the work that you're doing, you're going to be doing other things as well.
So how do you, I know, like you mentioned, like it's, you don't believe in siloed functions like content versus SEO versus demand gen, etc. So how do you enable this collaboration and stimulate it within Linode? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing?
Well, it's a mentality and approach that we take. So there's no playbook, right? You're not going to see the definitive guide to, removing silos inside your marketing organization. I just don't want those silos to exist from the start. So it's less about, like I said, it's less about a playbook and more about a mentality and approach that we take to build transparency within and outside of our marketing team, allowing for contributions from anyone who wants to contribute. And just, again, building that, that transparency to make sure that, the individual functions, aren't siloed. You don't just do social, you just don't do events. There's a lot of collaboration and partnership inside and outside of the marketing team. And, I think that carries over into our support team, carries over into our sales team. And, there's just that, kind of open door policy. We're not necessarily in offices anymore or in person anymore, but we definitely have that kind of open door, policy and relationship internally inside the marketing team and outside it, as well.
All right. And if you look at the programs that you've built over time, which of those programs would you say drive the most revenue?
I'm super excited and have been was somewhat of a naysayer to Google and CPC advertising and just, investing a lot of, time, effort, and money into it and seeing results. But, I've been fooled and not, shouldn't say fooled, but I've been proven wrong. And CPC, and we have an agency that manages our Google CPC ad program, and that is really performing well for us. I think it's also an attribution and influence play as well. I think people continue to see, our advertisements on Google when they're doing searches. We do a lot of retargeting through Google and their DV360 product. There's a lot of attribution and influence that goes into what we're doing from a channel standpoint on our marketing team, but it's harder and harder to do. I'm sure you know this, and your listeners know this. It's harder and harder to do with cookies being blocked natively, and then of course on purpose by developers who again have this built-in kind of allergy towards marketing.
And I know in a previous conversation you mentioned that also YouTube had a tremendous amount of growth. I think you mentioned something like 10 to 15% of the results are driven basically by influencers on YouTube. So how did the Linode's YouTube channel started and where is it today?
Yeah, it's something I'm super excited about. And like you said, we talked about this, prior to the podcast episode. And, I covered it with Jay Baer on his podcast, on the Social Pros podcast, along with Andrew Stebbins, who runs our YouTube channel and runs our influencer marketing program. The YouTube success really started with influencer marketing, and then moved to developer advocates, kind of that owned content and owned audience. Now we're focusing a little bit more on advertising inside of YouTube. But when you talk about that growth that you said, and when you mentioned 10 to 15% of our results of our new customers are driven by influencers on YouTube, that's the influencer marketing piece, right? That we're able to, identify key influencers, inside the cloud community, inside the Linux open source community, and leverage them to and work with us, on a sponsorship basis. It's an influencer marketing program. I mean, we don't hide that fact, but they promote Lenode on their, in their content, and it does really well for us.
And how do you work with them? What would you say are some kind of key success factors when it comes to working with the influencers?
So I know you and I talked at the beginning of this call. I didn't want to take the I didn't want to take the credit for what we're doing on marketing, because I really just help. And there's so many smart people on our team, and Andrew Stebbins really does it all with our influencer program. He identifies and he coordinates content related to, what Linode offers. Of course, those influencers are providing a pretty attractive offer to get people interested in Linode. But those people, those influencers, Vladimir, they're people who our buyers trust, right? So again, getting back to this idea of, skepticism around marketing, right? We did a research report almost 2 years ago now, probably a year and a half ago, where we found out that 2/3 of all cloud buyers self-select the cloud company they work with. So what does that mean? Well, they're relying on the opinion of their peers or their own research, and not marketing tactics. So again, when you go back to our influencer program, again, which is on YouTube, that's where our customers are, and prospects are. They're looking for this content, on YouTube. Andrew's doing a great job identifying, the influencers who our prospects and customers trust and rely on. And, the influencers are doing their thing, right? We're not controlling their content. We're our developer advocate program that we've started, we kind of own that content. The influencers are doing their kind of own thing. We're just matching and marrying, our offer to that. And the influencers are driving, like you said, 10 to 15% on average, new customers to the business, which is, I just think it's fantastic. I would have never expected it.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially because, like you mentioned, the developers being skeptical, not really trusting marketing, and then basically influencers who they maybe trust, but still they promote your product. So how does that work? I wonder, like, how do you overcome maybe some suspicion and, what that people might have?
I think the suspicion is going to be there for some, right? And I don't know how you overcome that. But, I just think it's a matter of, it's really just that matter of trust. It's understanding that, these influencers have a large following. They're not going to risk their reputation by pimping out a vendor, and they're going to stand by a vendor. And when they do these influencer videos, a lot of times they're using Lenode, and they're actually showing what they're doing on Lenode, or there's, again, a very good correlation between what they're doing and our services, and saying, hey, if you want to go do X, try Lenode, they can help you do X.
All right. And you were talking about influencers, and then you were also talking about using advocates. So I remember previously you mentioned something like marketing only begins when the customer says yes, and that the important job that you have is to create upsell opportunities and turn customers into advocates. So how do you work with customer success on creating upsell opportunities?
Yeah, thanks. It's the Fullfunnel podcast, right? And one of the reasons why I was super attracted to coming on and joining you today was because of that kind of full funnel approach, right? Where it's just not, bringing, doing demand gen and lead gen and building that top of funnel, for a B2C or B2B, for B2C or B2B marketing efforts, but it really is that full funnel. So I remember years and years ago, the Content Marketing Institute, and I still reference this, the Content Marketing Institute showed an American football field. And, the thing that I really loved about that, that analogy that they did was, the sale was at the midfield, right? So it's an American football analogy. So to your audience that doesn't know American football, you have a 100-yard football field, you get to the middle of the field, you're only halfway there, right? So they were saying that the customer is at that midfield mark. But then once you get that customer, it's your job to get them to the goal line. And the goal line means, retaining that customer and upselling that customer, and reducing churn, and ultimately getting to the end zone, getting to the touchdown where you've turned them into advocates. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about, the marketing only begins when the customer says yes. I don't want anybody in our marketing organization to think that our goal is just to drive leads to a sales team, or just, turn a customer who uses $100 in free credit into a paying customer. Our our challenge just starts then, right? So how do we help, like you said, the support team and other people inside our organization to make sure that that customer stays with us, potentially adds new services and adds more services, and then gets turned into an advocate. And one of the ways that we're trying to do that, turning them into advocates, is with our Craft of Code customer stories series. So what we do there is we don't take a traditional challenge solution result case study tactic. And again, when I came on board 2 years ago, I was kind of like, this is interesting. I've only done case studies where we state the challenge and we state the solution and we show the results. But I think again, that gets back to that the idea of skepticism, right? So we try to humanize our customer stories. And back in the direct mail days, when I started my marketing journey, I covered direct mail, and there was this idea that you needed to use these emotional triggers in your marketing, in your direct mail, fear, greed, guilt, anger, exclusivity, salvation, and the last one was flattery. And I really think flattery works, right? So we're turning these customers into advocates for earned media and for events and even reference calls by doing these stories on innovation that these individuals are doing on Linode. And we're focusing on the people who are building on Linode and the people inside the companies who are building on Linode. And if you look at our case studies, there's not a lot of logos there. There's a lot of people there. And that's really what I love. And it's a lot easier to go ask somebody to speak at an event or speak to a member of the trade press or to do a reference call, when you've partnered with them on your story versus just do a black and white pretty general challenge solution result story on the company or on something that isn't really related to the person doing it.
So I love it. So you're basically making them heroes of the story. You're featuring them and making them into fans at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I say to them all the time when we do the stories, I probably have to stop doing this but I'm on all of the interviews that our writing team does for our Craft of Code series. And I always start the call with, this is your story just as much as it is ours. And if you're not happy with it, I'm not happy with it. So, sometimes people do complete rewrites, that doesn't happen often, but it does. And sometimes people say, yeah, this is great. Thank you for telling my story this way. But the goal here is just to make sure that, you don't own that story, right? They own that story. And my recommendation to anybody listening who's struggling with, case studies would be, make sure that you think outside the box. Don't necessarily do the old challenge solution result just because that's what people tell you should be doing. And then make sure that you make the story that you're writing, it's the other person on the other side's story just as much as it is yours, and you want them to want to share that story on their social channels and drive more traffic back into you. So why not make it their story instead of your story, or equal at least.
I'm taking notes here. Definitely more of that. So I know in different conversations and some of the podcast interviews that I've been listening to, you were trying different things. I know that you tried many different things to drive awareness and leads, and later on also build the relationship with and make your customers successful, turn them into advocates. But I know you're trying different things. So I just wonder, how do you approach this experimentation? Do you have some sort of Google 20% rule? People can try their own things. Do you have more structured approach? How do you go about that? How do you organize that?
I wish I had more structure to a lot of the things I do, but I think it's probably both a negative and positive trait of mine that I don't have, sometimes a lot of structure or playbook behind some of the things that I do or that we do. Kind of again, my story here, my analogy here, and my team hears me say this all the time, or our team hears me say this all the time. If you're not testing, you're not failing, and you're not marketing, right? So, I encourage all of your listeners, the folks on our team, to test and to fail, and to come to me with their failures and say, well, we tried this and it didn't work. We probably could have a lot more structure behind what we do. There is structure in some areas. So for instance, we have somebody on our team who focuses on landing page optimization. And of course, there has to be a lot of, structure in, landing page optimization and doing A/B and multivariate testing of, headlines and all the other, data points that we're doing on landing pages to increase conversion. But really, Vladimir, I just want our team to try new things, and not be afraid to fail. And, I try not to, I'm pretty passionate about it. I try not to get upset when I hear, oh, I didn't try that. It's just like, well, why didn't you try it? And not being afraid to fail. I mean, like I said, if you're not testing, you're not failing. And in that case, you're not doing marketing, because marketing is all about testing.
Can I come work for you, maybe?
I
love it. But, on the other hand, I have to be like, I think just to zoom in into this, because I know also a lot of companies that kind of have a wrong idea about it. And what I mean by that is, I know a lot of companies who are trying different things without really having a good strategy behind it. So, oh, let's do some whatever. Let's do some LinkedIn ads, and let's do some whatever. We'll try a little bit of content marketing, and that doesn't work. So, and I don't think this is really experimentation. And I just wonder how you look at that, and how do you prevent people from, trying things that are maybe not in line with the strategy, or like, you see where I'm getting?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I mean, I certainly don't want somebody to go test, growing vegetables in a desert, right? Because it has nothing to do with what we're doing, right? But I also think that there's when you look at your experimentation and testing, there has to be a goal behind what you're doing, right? Like, again, earlier this morning, I had a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about, doing some experiments and some tests. And I said, well, what's the goal here, right? Is the goal content engagement, or is the goal acquisition? Let's start there before you start showing me what you want to test and what you want to experiment, what you want to try with. What is our goal, right? So I think everything starts with that, right? What is the outcome that you want to accomplish here? Is it awareness, which is fine, right? I mean, I work on the performance marketing team, right? But awareness is fine, right? You have to drive awareness to drive performance. So, if it's awareness, great. If it's engagement, fantastic. If it's conversion, if it's one or two of those, if it's all three, I would doubt that it's ever going to be all three. But what's the reason for doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And then after you've established that, just go start trying stuff, right? If we did not try, developer advocates, on our YouTube channel, we wouldn't have what we have right now, which is, I don't even remember the number, of hours of content that's consumed every month on our YouTube channel. But if we didn't try that, we would have never known that that's what we should be doing, right? And then, probably don't want to mention a lot of them, but there's a lot of things, there's a decent amount of things that we've done that didn't work. And again, I go back to the team and say, okay, well, we know we shouldn't be doing that again because it just didn't work. But you won't know it don't work unless you try it. So, just start. It's so easy to test and experiment in this day and age, right? Versus, depending on the experience level of your listeners, back in the day in the analog world, the print world, you really couldn't do a lot of testing because it costs a lot of money, and if it's printed, you can't retract it. But in the digital world, in the online world, you can test and you can pull something up and pull it back, with a couple keystrokes, and I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, you couldn't A/B test a trade show booth.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but you have to take two with you, and then that costs a lot of money, and it just didn't make sense, right? But yeah, you're 100% right.
And another kind of pitfall that I see when experimentation is that sometimes people give up too early. How do you decide when to give up, when to know, like, is this not working because the basic premise is wrong? Is it because maybe the positioning, messaging is wrong, targeting? Like, how do you decide when to kill off an experiment?
I think qualitatively you'll know when, but quantitatively, there's, reaching statistical significance and so forth, which I'm not good at, right? I'm a words guy. I'm not a numbers guy. But, there's, I think you have to take to maybe answer your question more succinctly, I think you have to take both a qualitative approach and a quantitative approach to it, right? And I don't necessarily know the quantitative side of it as well as other people on our team, but I certainly know the qualitative approach. I can sense when something's not working and pull it back, or tweak it and change it and see if something, if you change it, turn the dials on something, if it'll work better if it's not working, at the onset.
All right. And so what's next for your marketing team? Any key initiatives planned for 2022?
It's great timing, because as we record this, we're obviously getting into 2022 planning. I think, we're starting to see a movement towards YouTube advertising in our space. So I think we're going to, it seems like a natural progression nonetheless, because our YouTube channel is doing really well for us. Again, from an awareness, from a engagement, and from a conversion standpoint, to scale up, what we're doing on YouTube. The other challenge at Linode is we have three kind of personas, right? We have a developer persona, that we're who the company was built for, either a hobbyist or just a developer inside of who's working on a project. And then we have, a B2B persona, somebody who works at an organization, small, medium-sized business, small or medium-sized enterprise. And then we have a partner channel. So I think if when you ask me about plans for 2022, I think one of the big things we have to do is identify, okay, well, how do we take, we're actually calling them now, self-serve, versus commercial customers. How do we tweak and change our marketing message and our positioning to address, 2 or 3 really distinct audiences? Mm-hmm. So that's not easy. And if anybody knows how to do it, call me. But that's going to be, probably one of our bigger initiatives in 2022. I am personally looking forward to hopefully live events coming back post the pandemic. Things looking like, excuse me, in 2022, that's going to happen. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for owned events. And I'm not just talking about a user summit where you invite, Serena Williams to come talk. I'm talking about, really meaningful events that highlight, again, those stories of our customers, and really shine the light on them, not shine the spotlight on us. I think research is going to be a big piece, again, because of that, allergy that developers have towards marketing messages. So if we can put out research that proves X or helps a potential customer solve Y based on data, I think that'll help as well. So there's a lot going on. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing something, but we're gonna be busy.
Yeah, I love it. I think this is just amazing. Thank you so much. Just maybe to kind of wrap it up, can you let the listeners know where they can connect with you and learn more about what you're doing at Linode?
Yeah, our website is linode.com, linode.com. If you go to linode.com, you can also go to linode.com/content. We have all of our content organized there, and what we're referring to as our content hub right now. You can see, our craft of code customer stories, our YouTube videos, benchmark reports, and research as well, all there. Our team does a fabulous job doing that. And again, it's just not me doing that. Personally, I'm on LinkedIn. A few years ago, I gave up Twitter, but I'm on LinkedIn. And if somebody wants to connect with me there, you can reach out to me there. But I love talking marketing. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and, giving me this opportunity. If I can, help somebody, small or big, I'm always happy to talk, and I love talking marketing with folks. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much.